You've been lied to about China's unstoppable economic miracle for years. You've been told China's economy is an unstoppable juggernaut. What you're not being told is that behind the gleaming skyscrapers and impressive GDP numbers sits a paper tiger economy built on quicksand. In this video, we're going to expose the truth about China's massive overcapacity problem, ghost cities, and the ticking time bomb of debt that threatens to bring the whole charade crashing down. And if you stick with me to the end of this video, what you'll find out is even more shocking. This entire disaster wasn't an accident, guys. It was engineered by design as part of a desperate gamble that's failing spectacularly. Let's get into it. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Look, if you like our videos and you haven't already, become a subscriber to the channel. Hit the notification bell, smack the like button, because it helps us get our message out to more people who probably need to hear it. So, everyone's telling us for decades that China's economy is this unstoppable force destined to leave America in the dust. Oh no! The experts, the academics, the globalist class, they can't stop gushing about the Chinese economic miracle. But what if I told you it's all smoke and mirrors? The giant Potemkin village built to impress gullible Westerners while hiding a rotting foundation underneath is a reality. The truth might just keep you up at night if you're an investor. Over the last 10 years, China has been doubling down on the centrally planned neo-Keynesian fantasy land, one that only works so long as someone else is willing to play along. Think of it as monopoly with Chinese characteristics. Print a boatload of money, build entire ghost towns that now star in eerie YouTube drone tours, and call the whole thing growth. Only it's not. Meanwhile, the manufacturing sector is running a Red Queen race, running faster just to stay in place. China cranks out far more than it can actually use, then scrambles to offload the excess onto the US like a teenager frantically stuffing junk in the closet right before mom opens the door. If you've ever been 15 and grounded, you already understand the Chinese economic strategy. And this isn't some one-off problem, guys, or some temporary glitch in their system. This is their system. China's manufacturing overcapacity isn't some fluke, it's the default setting. Let that sink in. The country pumps out 30% of the world's manufactured goods, yet only consumes about 18% according to CKGSB, and they are essentially the Costco of the planet, bulk everything, but no one at home wants it. The situation has become so absurd that almost anywhere you go in America, you'll find Chinese-made products that the Chinese themselves can't afford or don't even want. And here's where it gets really interesting. China's industrial engines are sputtering. Its capacity utilization dropped to just 74% in the first quarter of 2025. Guys, that's not growth. That's a warning light. For those of you who don't speak economists, that means that about a quarter of their factories are just sitting around idle. They're empty, collecting dust or making TikToks instead of producing anything useful that they don't want. Why would a supposedly rational economic powerhouse build factories just to let them sit empty? Because in China, the goal isn't profit, it's appearances. This is true. China's Keynesian-style central planning is all about keeping the wheels turning. Max out employment, chase growth, ignore the debt. Translation, just keep building. Bridges to nowhere, empty apartment towers, and idle factories. Crossing their fingers the whole time that someone, anyone, eventually shows up to buy. Its economic policy was designed by Field of Dreams screenwriters. If you build it, they will come. Except nobody's coming. The Chinese government knows all this, of course. They're not stupid. They're just trapped in a system of their own making. They've even started using fancy euphemisms to acknowledge the problem without actually admitting failure. The government admitted that involution-style competition, aka wasteful, self-cannibalizing overproduction, is a real problem. So for 2025, they're promising to dial it back by reining in pointless investments and putting the brakes on runaway growth in certain industries. Translation, even they know they've been running in circles. Involution-style competition. That's bureaucrat speak for we've been flushing money down the toilet to build stuff that nobody needs. Here's the part that should make your blood boil. China's overcapacity problem didn't just happen. It was built on purpose. Local and national leaders were so focused on boosting GDP that they kept pushing for more factories, more buildings, more everything, even when nobody needed it. This whole economic house of cards was deliberately constructed by bureaucrats who think that GDP is some high score in the Sim City. Does this bizarre model work? Well, sort of, but only if they can dump their excess on someone else. And guess who that someone else is? That's right. Us, America. The whole system is designed to keep people working and the economy growing, even if the projects lose money. And believe it or not, it kind of works as long as China can dump the extra goods on the rest of the world. They get paid in foreign currency, pass the financial burden onto global consumers, and keep production cheap through tight currency controls and a rigged exchange rate. In plain English, flood America with artificially cheap goods, manipulate their currency to keep exports flowing, and hope nobody notices running what amounts to be a national Ponzi scheme. There are over 1 billion people in China, and when you're a communist country, you eventually run out of other people's money. But you still have 1 billion people who want to eat every day. So how do you take care of them while avoiding the pitchforks and torches scenario? Well, the answer is simple. You create a fake economy that depends on the United States buying your cheap stuff. Now, how much of that do you think that Trump already knew going into the negotiations? He's always ahead. He's always several steps ahead of everybody. And reality has a nasty habit of crashing the party eventually. Mounting debt, a weakening currency, and a wave of bankruptcies and cash flow problems are stacking up fast. And even without a formal recession, this fragile model could still come crashing down under its own weight. China's in trouble. The structure is wobbling, and even Xi Jinping's signature death glare won't hold it up much longer. The Chinese leadership knows they're in trouble. China has learned it the hard way. It can't survive a trade war with the U.S. And no matter how hard times get, and how hard it tries, it can't replace the American consumer, the world's biggest and richest market, with buyers in Europe or Latin America. It's us. It's always been us. It will always be us. They need us more than we need them, and now they know it. Now they're doing what desperate governments always do. They're printing more money to hide the problems. China officially slipped into deflation for the 3rd month in a row in April. And despite ramping up fiscal stimulus, business bankruptcies aren't slowing down. There's a projection of a 7% jump in 2025 and a 10% spike in 2026. In other words, the Band-Aids, they're not sticking. Their solution to drowning in printed money is to print more money. Brilliant. The backbone of any healthy economy is its small and medium-sized businesses. And in China, that backbone is breaking. China's small and mid-sized businesses, especially exporters, are going under fast, squeezed by shrinking cash flow and the end of U.S. tariff exemptions. Export-heavy regions are shedding jobs, and urban unemployment is projected to hit 5.7% this year, well above the government's target, according to CNBC. Even the official numbers, which we should always take with a grain of salt coming from an authoritarian regime, are flashing red. When a regime that's famous for cooking the books admits things are bad, you know they're actually terrible. And we haven't even gotten to the biggest catastrophe yet, real estate. The real estate sector, once responsible for nearly 30% of China's GDP, has collapsed, dragging down banks, wiping out household wealth, and triggering a negative wealth effect that's crushing both consumer spending and demand for credit. Imagine if almost a third of America's economy suddenly imploded. That's what's happening in China right now as apartments sit empty, construction companies fold, and ordinary Chinese citizens watch their life savings evaporate. They invested in concrete boxes that are now worth less than they paid, if they can sell them at all. Let's not forget that grand imperial project, the Belt and Road Initiative. It's turning into one of history's most expensive failed investments. China's financial system is buckling under the weight of its rising bankruptcies, a collapsing property market, and ballooning local government debt, just as bad loans from the Belt and Road Initiative pile up. Several BRI nations, including Sri Lanka, Zambia, Ghana, and Pakistan, have already defaulted or needed IMF bailouts. Meanwhile, the Belt and Road Initiative has racked up a staggering $385 billion in hidden off-the-books debt. They've been building bridges to nowhere across half the globe, racking up mountains of debt that will never be repaid, all to extend their influence and create markets for their excess capacity. But those countries can't pay back the loans, leaving China holding the bag. Wow, what a staggering fail. The fundamental problem is their economic model itself. Now, there is an escape hatch, but it would require China's leaders to admit failure and change course. The only real way for China to tackle its massive working capital crisis is by securing a swift and favorable trade deal with the U.S. If Beijing opened up its economy, loosened capital controls, and gave the private sector room to breathe, the benefits would be enormous and fast. Will they do it? History suggests no. Trump is saying that he has an agreement. We don't know the details yet. Control-obsessed authoritarian regimes rarely willingly give up power, even when it's in their economic interests. And so China's overcapacity crisis, largely ignored by the media, is quietly imploding. And instead of fixing it, the government keeps doubling down with more central planning and stimulus. In the long run, it's not a solution. It's a slow bleed that's only making China weaker. So what does this all mean for us? It means we need to stop being China's economic safety valve. We need to stop letting them dump their excess capacity into our markets, destroying American jobs and industries in the process. We need to recognize their economic model for what it is. It's a house of cards that stays standing only because we allow it. The facade of Chinese economic invincibility is crumbling before our eyes. The paper tiger's getting wet and the ink is running. Everybody can see it. The emperor has no clothes. America still has the strongest, most dynamic, most innovative economy in the world, if we have the courage and wisdom to protect it. And I think Trump does. All right, thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.
They said we'd lose if we stood